Welcome everyone to our owners session. I am very excited for today's session. We have Ben with us from Cypress Valley Meat. Um, Quick sidebar. Ben joined us at Steward's Circle last year, which is a conference that we run for EOT operators. And he and his leadership team did a presentation that I saw and immediately said, we need to bring him on to an owners session. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to do a little bit of setting the stage up front, and then we'll jump into some Q&A. Just quickly to introduce myself to folks who are new to us at Common Trust. I'm Zoe, co-founder and CEO here at Common Trust. We support business owners on every step of the employee ownership journey. So we work with business owners when they're evaluating, is this the right fit for them? We help them set up an employee ownership transition plan through employee ownership trust. And then we support them to actually operate and operationalize employee ownership at their company. Um, We've worked with businesses with 10 employees. We've worked with businesses with tens of thousands of employees. So I think it's really exciting just to see the widespread adoption of this model. For today's session, I'll give a little bit of context before we jump in. You're here for our owner sessions, which is a dedicated series that we've built specifically to hear from business owners who are operating employee-owned companies. For today, we're really going to focus in on the culture side of things. In historical conversations, we've talked a lot about structure, why people chose one path or another. And for today's conversation, we're really going to dig deep into an ownership culture and how that actually lines up with the structure. So I'm excited to introduce Ben. Ben is the CFO of Cypress Valley Meat, which you can see from the logo behind his head here. Ben was part of the leadership team that led the company's transition to an employee ownership trust. One of the things that I really appreciate about Ben and his team is just how intentional they've been about building an ownership culture and then really adapting it to their company, their workforce, and making it unique to their team. So it's not just in values and language, but it shows up in the everyday experiences, the rituals, and some of the fun things they've come up with. So for today, I'm going to kick off this conversation with a series of questions, but feel free to drop any questions that you guys have into the chat. I'll be monitoring those. We will pull them in throughout the conversation. And then we'll also have time at the end of the conversation for you to ask questions of Ben directly, which again, put those in the chat and we'll get them into the flow. So let's kick off. Ben, let's start with Cypress Valley. Tell us a bit about how the business began, how it operates today, and some of what makes you guys unique in your industry.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Zoe. So as Zoe said, my name's Ben Wihebrink. I'm the employee owner and CFO and treasurer of Cypress Valley Meat Company in Arkansas. I have been with Cypress Valley Meat Company since 2020. Officially, actually started consulting with the owners of Cypress Valley back in 2016. Um, and one of the unique things about our setup is I was really brought on for two very intentional purposes back in 2020. Number one, our company wanted to grow from being a mom and pop to more of a regional food manufacturer. And number two, the founder of Cypress Valley really wanted to figure out how could he share the work and the proceeds of this company with his employees. So I had really two big job performance mandates coming in was to help grow the company into the next phase, and then through over a 4 or 5 year time period, figure out how to transition it, which we have successfully done as of last year. So we began in 2010 as a wild game processor, actually. Andy Shaw was our founder. He worked in the meat market business and retail grocery, and on the side, he would cut deer and other wild game in his parents' backyard shed. That grew up to being too many deer for a backyard shed, so it turned into an actual facility in 𝗵𝗿, Arkansas, which is a very small community with about 3,000 people. It only took about a year for hunters that were also farmers to say, "Hey, you do such a great job with our deer. I wish you could do this for our cows." And Andy, just being the type of person he was never the person to tell anybody no. The running joke in our company is that Andy might not have known that we were actually supposed to make money. Um, so he said, I think we could figure that out. So within a year after starting his formal business at Cypress Valley Meat Company, he bought a USDA inspected meat processing plant in rural Arkansas. Um, Over the years, that did pretty well to sustain, his family and a small operation. When I came on in 2020, officially, Andy was running three facilities, one that he owned, one that he leased, and then one that was just seasonal for wild game. He had 40 employees, and around a million two in revenues. Fast forward now, we're 5+ years later. We either own or control five facilities in Arkansas. We have 150 full-time employees, and we're approaching about $8 million in annual sales. Um, so, uh, so we're really proud that we accomplished both goals that I came on for originally, which was to help grow the company and to figure out how to transition it into an employee-owned structure. Um, what makes us unique, and why do we even why did we want to lock up this business in a trust and protect it? Well, number one, a lot of the reason that customers come back to us is because we care as much about their animals as they care about them as they're raising them. We are not a traditional meat slaughter and packing house. Our target customers are organic, regenerative, grass-based livestock producers. Um, Another thing that makes us unique is our size in the industry. We're the only custom meat processor in the region that can take a semi-load of animals. So we can give small farmers a leg up to compete with much bigger market partners in the spaces that they're playing. Another thing that's just kind of unique, which we'll dive into as part of the culture, is our employee turnover compared to our industry. Um, I'd like to, for instance, as we're sitting here right now, 4 months into the year, we have an 11% turnover on our 150 employee base. Comparatively, in the red meat industry, employee turnover per year is over 100%. So we do a really great job of attracting and retaining our employees. And then the other thing that we have, especially since 2020, is that we have a professional leadership team. We have a CFO like me that can help work on some of these more strategic initiatives. We have a CEO, we have a COO, we have a director of food safety, we have a director of HR. A lot of the competition in our space, they have single facilities that's family run, and they might have been family run for 30 years. They can't weather an economic shock like we can. Plus, now that we have five different facilities and we process everything from wild game all the way through pastured poultry, like right now, the cattle markets are down a little bit in terms of live animals. Ground beef is super expensive on the grocery store shelf. But we have a poultry facility, which is turning out record numbers because when ground beef gets too high, people buy more chicken. So we've done a good job of also diversifying the company.
Ben, I think the turnover rate that you're talking about relative to the industry is incredibly impressive, and I think speaks a lot to the culture that is embedded in the company. Um, I actually want to ask you to talk a little bit about Andy, the founder. He looms large in my mind because I've only heard so many stories about him from you all. But I'd love for you to take a moment to share a bit about Andy, who he was as a founder, and some of the values that he instilled in the company that you guys were able to bring into this trust structure.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, so unfortunately, we lost Andy to COVID in 21. Um, but he was really the kind of the North Star and the beacon of this company. It was his baby. It was the only child that he really had. He had some stepchildren, but he didn't have heirs that were interested in taking over this business. Um, I've never met anybody that was more passionate about people and meat in my life. As I'd said, I actually met the founder group back in 2016 as a consultant. I was actually working with a farmer cooperative and helping a farmer cooperative buy into Cypress Valley when I first met Andy. And um, and just his integrity and the way that he carried himself. Um, it was like a bright shining star from the immediate get-go. Um, everybody that ever met Andy Shaw loved him from the beginning. He never met anybody that didn't become a personal friend. Um, it was funny. There's several sayings that we also mimic quite a bit today. But one of Andy's taglines was always, "What can we do for you?" He would end every conversation like that, even if we were just talking on the phone for a few minutes before he got off. What can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? He ended that with every customer and every vendor that he talked to, and he meant it, which was the incredible thing. Um, he would end all of our team meetings with "I love you guys." How many CEOs or founders of the company ends a team meeting and tells all of his employees that he loves them? At first, it was awkward, right? So I'm sure I'm getting some smiles from the group here. But yeah, at first it was real awkward because like, what do we do? Do we say we love you too? Do we like what you know? But now it's become something that even our current CEO Brandon does probably about half the time. He'll get off of a meeting and say I love you guys. Another thing that Andy was famous for saying anytime he hired somebody was he would always tell everybody, "Hey, we're going to retire together." He told me that specifically too. Once he took 2 years to get me to come to work for him, work with him. He would never have anybody work for him. It was always work with him. And some of those quotes, and even saying something like he wanted people to work with him and not for him, those kind of embody his personality and his style of servant leadership. Um, and then Andy eventually, as we started actually growing the company, he spearheaded creating our company values, um, which are the ones that we kind of hang on now. We call it our purpose, and we ask our employees, or we tell our employees, we work with purpose. And purpose is just an acronym, and I'll just say it really quickly before Zoe has us move to the next question here. But our purpose is to have a positive perspective always, unified team and family atmosphere, relationships, not transactions, pride in our product, openness equals honesty, to be self-driven, and then embrace change. And that's our purpose. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Andy was always a fan of saying, "Hey, let's hire people that fit our culture and that fit our values and that can embody our values. We can train them how to cut meat." And that's really the approach that we've taken, and probably why our turnover is so low, because we will invest in the skill set of the person that fits our company, if that makes sense.
Ben, one of the things that I think is really interesting about where you guys are and how you operate is like it's very easy to have a set of values on the wall that people can repeat. It's very different to see those live and in action in the company. When you talk about that, we work with purpose. Tell us a bit about just how you've seen employees embody that and how that's showed up and how people are actually working and operating at the company.
Well, one thing is interesting with our purpose. It Everybody embodies it to such a level that it also gives us the ability to open conversations with it, even difficult conversations, um, because it gives us a lead in to basically just call out and say, "Hey, you're not working with purpose," even though we're not coming up and saying, "Hey, Zoe, you're not working with purpose right now." But it's very acceptable for somebody in our company to come and say, "Hey, uh, you don't really have a positive perspective today, do you? Or what could you do to have a positive perspective on this topic?" When it's very easy, and I mean, we have over 2,600 farmer customers across our company. It's real easy to get frustrated with a customer and what a customer wants, right? Um, but it's also easy for us to step back and say, "Hey, let's focus on this relationship, not this individual transaction." Um, People are naturally scared of change all the time. We approach those conversations through embracing change, which is the last E in our purpose there too. Um, so so that just to say, and the purpose, we actually have it printed on laminated posters. They're hung up in multiple places in every facility. Um, our employees can nominate each other to get a purpose sticker on our employee recognition program, which I think is going to come up in a little bit as well. And we actually do our employee evaluations. 80% of it is weighted towards embodying that purpose. and only about 20% of it is their skills or speed or efficiency at their job. So we're really making sure that we're working with the right people that embody the values of the company, and we have it interlaced in everything that we do.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the transition as you guys set up this employee ownership trust. One of the unique perspectives you bring, Ben, and brought into this role is you actually had experience with other employee ownership structures. I'd love for you to walk us through a little bit about how you guys approached this conversation, why you ended up with the EOT, and how that really protects some of these values you've just walked us through.
Sure, sure, sure. So as Zoe was saying, personally, I come to the table with a decade of agricultural development and agricultural finance experience. And as part of that, I had a lot of experience both setting up and financing agricultural cooperatives, marketing cooperatives, and to a lesser degree, even consumer cooperatives. So I was very familiar with the cooperative model, the patronage system that goes along with cooperatives, and the governance structure of generally having, one member, one vote. Um, Part of the reason why Andy wanted me to come in. Plus, I'll drop this plug too, is some colleagues and I went to Mondragon, Spain, back in 2016. And for those of you that don't know, Mondragon is the largest worker cooperative system in the world. They're a federated system across multiple industries. They even at this point have their own university and banking system as part of their cooperative federation. But that was a very inspiring trip for somebody like me that worked in cooperative development work for so long, to see a different way that ownership doesn't have to just be with the producers of the product, and really we kind of translated it back to what about those workers in the cooperative? And at the time, I was working with a cooperative in Arkansas, which I had kind of said earlier that we helped that cooperative buy into Cypress Valley for a time, and that's really what kind of got that journey started. Conversing with Andy, and Andy's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this company in the future. He's like, but I know that I want to be able to share it. He's like, because I've got 40 people here that are doing all the hard work at this point. And then I'm coming super inspired by an incredible trip to Mondragon, Spain, and seeing a different way of working and a different way of sharing the proceeds of the work. So me and my colleagues come back and we're like, well, hey Andy, how about this? And we're like, what if you set it up in some kind of a worker cooperative? And so that's really the first way that we tried to dive into it. But then we said, hey, what about the actual cooperative that we just had buy into part of the company? Is there something we can do for the employees there or even the farmers there? So originally, we were actually looking at making a broader ecosystem-wide perpetual purpose trust. Um, I had written Andy a couple of white papers on ESOPs and like phantom stock type programs. But ultimately, what it came down to for an organization like Cypress Valley in our context is, I mean, we're in the food business. We operate on very slim margins. Cash flows are somewhat seasonal. We have a very large employee base since we're in the service industry. Our biggest line item on our P&L is our direct labor. So when it came to looking at an ESOP, um, I was just scared to death, right? I mean, I was like, oh my, I'm gonna have to have 100+ capital accounts. I'm gonna have to do a valuation every year. Oh, and where am I ever gonna pool enough money for repurchase obligations when people leave? I really couldn't wrap my head around how I was gonna do all of that. And we just felt like a cooperative model with one member, one vote wouldn't work with 100+ people, having a say. Um, so we were very attractive to the employee ownership trust model, and we started doing some more exploration around that work. We got heavy into it for a minute, and then unfortunately our trust attorney passed away from cancer, and I was a little bit demotivated. And then Zoe and her colleagues invited me to come to their first steward circle. And after I went there, I was much more inspired by hearing the other stories of the business owners. and the speed at which this space was developing. So we decided to get back on the roll here and see what we could do. So ultimately, we picked the EOT. It ended up being so flexible. It allowed us to pick how do we want to do our profit sharing? What is our trust purpose? At what speed do we really move with the transactions? So ultimately, it came down to the flexibility in the model that allowed us to do it. Our trust is very simple. We have five stated trust purposes. One of them is that the trust is for employee benefit. It's that simple. Our other four are around our company values and our purpose that I talked about earlier because we wanted those things to live on forever in this company.
Great. So related to that, then you guys set up this trust. Now I want to move into talking little bit about culture and practice because I think, I mean, you guys are interesting in that you had a lot of the ownership culture in place before you set up the trust. Now you're able to use the trust to kind of reinforce that. I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the tactics you guys have used to reinforce culture? And I think this will be one of the funner part of the conversations for us to jump
Mhm.
into.
Yeah, lots of tactics and maybe some artifacts. But I think ultimately where the magic happens is we've intertwined it throughout the entire operating processes and the culture of the company. Um, so we had a small advantage because I came with some experience and I came with social enterprise experience really where a lot of traditional small business owners might not have some of that working knowledge to lean back on. But I came from a very collaborative space already, probably the more liberal side of business anyway. So uh, very early on, we started introducing practices that we felt like really embodied social enterprise in general. Triple bottom line profits. Yes, we need to make a profit. Yes, we care about the environment. Yes, we care about our people. How do we care about the people? Well, we want the people to win, number one, and we want them to feel like they're doing a really good job. So we did some readings to help figure out how we do all of this. Some of you have probably uh, read The Great Game of Business or Good to Great or Rocket Fuel. These are a few of the ones that have inspired us to create up a little bit of gaming and some rewards in our system. Um, so we
Then let's pause here. Let's talk about some of the awards.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so some of the words. So we started pretty early on. We started what we call our Meet the Rewards program. And meet is, the pun is intended, it's spelled MEAT. And the intentionality there is that we reward individual plant team members for budget performance. And they have a quarterly component to that, and then they have an annual component to that. And that was our very first version of, in a way, of profit sharing, way before we even started into the EOT. So what we said on our annual Meet the Rewards program is that if any of the plant teams, and we got our board and the current ownership at the time to agree to this amazingly. But we said if the plant team generates profits in excess of their budget, then we would share half of whatever that overage is with every employee that works in that facility. Um, and that was powerful just right away because a lot of our employees, being blue collar workers in rural Arkansas, have never experienced stuff like that. But then we started to say, how do we communicate this stuff to the whole organization? How do we make it fun and a little bit of competition between them? So we said, well, let's get everybody on a video call every quarter. So now every quarter for the last 4 years, we have gotten on a video call, all locations, all employees, and we do a town hall. We give them the state of the business, and we let them ask questions, any question they want to, of anybody in the company. Sometimes we do fun stuff like make little video skits. Sometimes we do stuff like do video tours of the facilities for employees that haven't, been back and forth between the different locations. Um, Then we had to take it a little bit a step further though, and we said, well, if we're given the whole state of the business, let's at least give them the financials too. How much of the financials do we want to give them? And then, just me being me, I said, let's just give them everything. So we implemented an open book finance system, and we just put no restrictions on it except for individual pay rates. Um, and anecdotally, I hired another accounting assistant back in November, and I was sitting in her office, and we were doing some training at our poultry facility. A young lady came up from the plant floor. She was covered in chicken grease and all kinds of stuff. And she walks into the accounting office and she was real polite and she says, "Excuse me." She's like, "Can I have a copy of the P&L, please?" And my new accounting assistant just looks at me with this stare of, "Oh my gosh, what is going on here?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Can you please print her a copy of the last month's P&L?" And so she printed it, and then after we gave it to her, and I said, "If you have any questions, let me know." We let her walk out of the office, and then I'm still getting this like jaw dropped, eyes wide open stare. And I said, "No," I said, "If any employee wants any of the financial information on the company, you have full authorization to give it to them. The only thing you cannot give out is somebody's pay rate. That's it." So we
And
went full
what did
open
that,
book.
yeah,
Mhm.
what did that change for your employees, having that kind of access?
Well, so we had to teach some confidentiality. So we learned that real quickly too. We had to make sure to enhance our confidentiality policy in our handbook and make sure that all of our employees knew that while they had open access to all of our financial information, they could not share it outside of themselves or each other. So that's kind of one thing that popped up out of it. But really, what it did was it started letting individual plant employees have conversations that, you know, either we've shielded them from before or that we didn't think was important to them. But when you start having an employee ask and say, our water bill seems high. Is there anything I can do to help make it lower? Or our supply line is running here. What's driving that? Just opening those conversations is incredible. Um, and I also had to do a little bit of financial literacy too in some of those town hall meetings. So I don't want to pretend for everybody on the call that it was an easy or a quick process. Um, I mean, I sat down in one of our town halls and I spent 15 minutes showing all of our employees how gross profit is calculated. And then I showed them what goes into their contribution margin and what goes into their net operating profits. And then I took one whole session and took 30 minutes to show them how they earn their bonuses. Um, so there was a lot of employee education that went behind it. Um, and then we ultimately also went to weekly scorecarding, which helps. And now our Meet the Rewards program isn't based just on budget dollars. Now it's based on balanced scorecard metrics. Um, and ultimately, we really want to treat our employees with the same purpose we're treating everybody else. We want relationships with our employees, not transactions with our employees. Um, so maybe I'll pause there and see what
Well,
the
yeah, tell us a bit about what goes into those scorecards. How did you develop it? How do your employees understand what's on those scorecards? How do they understand how their work ladders up to that?
Mhm. Yes. So we started with kind of the basic balanced scorecard approach of saying, we want to look through metrics that are applicable to our people internally. We want to look at financial metrics. We want to look at a customer perspective on our business, and we want to look at learning and growth perspective on our business. So we took kind of the basic. A balanced scorecard framework, and then we started toying with how are those dimensions important to our company, and then we weighted them as such. So in our current version of our scorecarding now, we have a couple of safety metrics. Of course, OSHA recordables are very important. We're in the manufacturing industry, but even before an incident leads to an OSHA recordable, there was probably something below that could have been prevented. So what we do is we actually we show in our quarterly town hall, we show our safety pyramid, and the pyramid shows the small incidents that are band-aids and scratches at the bottom, all the way through things that turn into major reportable incidents. But on our scorecard now, we've started tracking the band-aids, and it seems like something that would be very tedious, but it's surprisingly not. And it opens a lot of conversations to safety practices and it's really cut down on stitches since 60% of our employees are holding a knife all day. Um, we we have some financial metrics in there, but it's not sales. Because we feel like if we're running the business the way it needs to be running, then the sales will come. So like for instance, our financial metrics are around labor efficiencies and carcass yield efficiencies. So for example, we look at our labor to sales ratio and we look at our labor per cut pound ratios. And then we also look at our spending on supplies versus our cut pounds. And we feel like if all of these metrics are coming in alignment, then it's working. For our customer perspectives, we look at things like customer complaints, and we review every customer complaint as a leadership team in detail every week. And we also look at what's our cost of rework. How much are we spending making the customer satisfied?
Ben,
So those are just a few examples. Mhm.
I'd be curious to have you reflect on what have you learned about getting your wider base of employees to engage with those metrics. It feels very natural to me that your leadership team would be really in it, but what kind of tactics did you use? How did you really roll that out so that the employees really understood what they were looking at and could surface up some of the solutions that you guys may not otherwise have visibility into?
Mhm. That's a great question. So initially, we did have a smaller subselect of the team, and basically six of us working on those scorecards. And then as we got into the second year of using it, we expanded it to our wider management team, and we said, "No, you're responsible, you're responsible, you're responsible, and hey, know all of your numbers." And then what we did was to cascade that communication flow down to our plant teams. We said, "Hey, every week." After we review the scorecard, it gets printed and it gets hung up in the break rooms. So that way, every week the employees can see what their last week's score was and their year-to-date average. And then we've gone in the last couple of years, even beyond that, to having some of the room supervisors, some of our functional department supervisors be responsible for collecting and filling in those scorecards. So that way it's not on their individual plant operations or general managers. So over the course of some time, we have delegated and cascade some of the information flowing downwards so that way they can bring it back up to where it's being created and they can own those processes more. And then when we're walking in, and if I'm walking through one of one of our butcher rooms or something, I can ask, our room supervisor in there about his scorecard last week, and he can talk to me about it. And it's pretty amazing. I mean, he'll be able to say, well, we didn't hit these yield numbers because this, or we had this disruption or this equipment breakage, etc. Just by giving all of the employees access to the information, it's really opened up a lot of doors to where we've got more people thinking about the company than just a few leaders at the top.
Yeah, Ben, I think in hearing you talk, one of the things that I think you guys have done really well is take uh, aspects of a business that normally just the leadership team would be looking at and making it visible to the rest of the company. So you have the open book financials, you have the scorecard. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how you make values in that purpose visible. And I want to hear about the meat cleavers.
Yes. Yes. So like I mentioned, a couple of things. Hopefully it doesn't seem like I'm bouncing around too much. So in our quarterly town halls, we do give the summary scorecard results for the quarter publicly to all the plants. We also tell them their Meet the Rewards scorecard. We keep a scorecard for that on every quarter to say, hey, this plant team hit their quarterly bonus. This plant did not. We don't shame anybody, but we let all of them know who's winning and who's not because it does inspire the other teams to try and win because they don't want to be, if it's one of five facilities not earning a bonus, they're going to work a whole lot harder to figure out how they can hit their bonus because they don't want to be the only ones. So we display those types of things in our quarterly town hall. Another thing we do in our quarterly town hall is we welcome all of our new employees publicly. So that way, even employees at different locations know, who's coming on board the team because now at this point we're all employee owners also. Well, if you've been with us a year, you're an employee owner, but all of the people that we bring in are prospective employee owners. So we want everybody to know each other's name. Um, and we go over in our town hall, we go over a summary version of our company history every single quarter. So we have employees that have been with us longer than I've been here, and they keep hearing the company history every single quarter. We go over those purpose statements every single quarter. So that way all the employees understand them. Now, how do we get them kicked off in it? Well, so this is the fun part. So a couple of years ago, we decided we wanted to have an employee recognition program. And we tossed around several different ideas of what to do. But ultimately, what we decided was we wanted to play with stickers. So, and it was really inspired by some of you might be football fans, and if you ever watch a college football game and you notice on the back of a lot of helmets, they've got some of the players have tons of just logo stickers all over the back of their helmet, and it's for different plays or good things they've done while they're while they're playing or on the field, right? So we kind of took that same concept and on the front of our Pottsville, Arkansas building, our flagship USDA inspected facility, we have a giant carved metal meat cleaver that says "In loving memory of Andy Shaw," who was the founder of the company. And the meat cleaver is symbolic because in our original version of our company logo had the state of Arkansas and it had Cypress Valley Meat Company. It had a meat cleaver on it. And we changed from that because we're not just in Arkansas anymore. So we didn't want it to just have the Arkansas logo, but we wanted to still have an homage to that. So if you might notice the diamond surrounding our logo, Arkansas is the diamond state, in case you didn't know that. Um, but so we decided to make smaller versions of those cleavers. They're about a foot long and about 6 inches wide. And on the handle, we'll just print on a label maker the employee's name. We give them their cleaver after they've hit 90 days with us, as we have a 90-day probationary period, and just frankly, we don't want to spend the $7 on the cleaver if they don't make it 90 days. Um, but once they hit 90 days, now they have the ability to start participating in our employee recognition program. And the employee recognition program is quite fun. So we obviously have a purpose sticker, and anytime any of our employees are witnessed embodying any of our seven purpose statements, then they're nominated for a sticker. And anybody in the company can nominate them. It does not have to be leadership. I mean, a sanitation person can nominate, the smokehouse employee, etc. Um, so, um, so they get a sticker for living out the company values on a day-to-day basis when they're witness doing that. We have stickers for all the different plant locations. So if an employee fills in at a different location, they can get a sticker representing that they've worked at one of the other locations. They can get a sticker for tenure. We have 1, 5, and 10 year stickers for years of service. One of my personal favorites is the Benjamin sticker, which is after me. So they actually took my head and put it on part of a bill. I don't have one handy to just show right now, but so they put it on there. They called it the Benjamin, and any employee that can save the company $500 on a single initiative can get a Benjamin sticker on their cleaver. So those are just a few examples of it. It's we try and create a lot of fun out of it, and what we do is we take. So once the employee has a full cleaver, they get to take that cleaver home so they can share the stories with their family or whatever and have it as an artifact memento. And then we upgrade them to another cleaver that's a different color. And they get to start over again. But with the reward for filling up the first one, they get to spin a prize wheel, which we kind of stole the concept a little bit from when I was over at 𝘵𝗪 in Texas, because got to see their team meeting and their report out, and somebody spun the prize wheel, and we're like, hey, we want one of those. So we went and got a prize wheel, and we wrote our own prizes on it, so employees can spin it, and they can like one of the slots on it is they land on it, say, pick your leader, pick your lunch, and they can have any one of the leadership team take them out to lunch whichever day they want to. There's a cash prize on there. There's a new pair of boots. We work in meat manufacturing. People go through boots pretty quickly. We've got extra vacation days on there, things like that to make it fun. So every time they fill up a whole cleaver, then they get to spin the prize wheel and get a little prize, and they get their picture in the next town hall, acknowledging their reward of filling up their cleaver. And we've started this program about 2 years ago. And we actually have our first couple employees that have leveled up 2 cleavers. So they're on their third cleaver color now. Uh, yeah.
How many levels does this go up?
We don't know yet. We didn't think that far ahead. Honestly, we didn't think people were going to be filling up one cleaver. but we probably have 20% of our employees have filled up one cleaver. So it's quite amazing. And for those of you that might think, oh gosh, they're just stickers. So we have a lot of roughneck employees, a lot of blue collar workers in our company. And one day we were sitting in one of the plants and we were just trying to figure this out. And we had some stickers that we were just playing with. And one of our trainers, or the guy who trains our new butchers, he was walking through the plant and he said something and to our CEO, and our CEO said, "You know what?" He said, "Cam, you deserve a sticker for that." So he just put a sticker right on his smock and didn't think anything else of it till the end of the day. So then at the end of the day, it's time for time to clock out. And this employee that got the sticker, he's sitting down in the lobby by the time clock, and there's a whole line of people clocking out for the day, and people are asking him about that sticker. And he's so excited. And he's like, all I did was I told Brandon this, and he gave me this sticker. And then more people are coming by and they're saying stuff. And he's like, you don't have a sticker, and you don't have a sticker. And from there, it just snowballed to, this is a very inexpensive way that we can have a lot of fun with our employees. And now it's become one of the central things that we do in the entire company. We have the cleavers on the wall in the lobbies of each location. So even customers, vendors walk in, they see this wall of cleavers hanging up, especially at the locations that have, 40, 50, 60 employees. And it immediately sparks a conversation. And that's really what we want is we want that conversation. We want that relationship with our customers, our employees, and our vendors. So
I mean, I want to meet Cleaver after hearing about this.
we're gonna get Zoe a meat cleaver.
Yes, it'll go right here on my wall.
Mm.
Okay, so Ben, what I'd love to hear you reflect on now is we've talked about how, you have financial transparency, transparency with the business, ways to visibly bring culture to life within the company. Tell us how setting up the EOT and layering employee ownership onto this entire system, what that changed, what stayed the same, how that affected the team.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I can start with, uh, what hasn't changed is our operation and the core of our team. Um, I would say. I would say we're still acting and we're still the same company that we were, pre-EOT. Our sentiment towards the company hasn't changed. And since we have uh, really started acting as if so much earlier than we made the transition, a lot of what we're doing also didn't change. But I can tell you a couple of things. Um, Things like having these quarterly town halls, being uh, overly transparent with our communication, things like that, where before was somewhat selective. I would say now it is certainly a requirement of our team. Um, we've had a couple of times where we've had to delay a town hall meeting since we've made the EOT transition, and people have really kind of got onto it saying, hey, no, whereas I might have been sleeping through that last time, but now I care because I need to hear what's going on in my company. So we're getting a lot more of that. We're getting a lot more in just engagement um, in terms of what can I do to make the company better. Another thing that we've had since we're in manufacturing is we've had a process over the last few years. We call it process improvement team. We call them PIT teams is the acronym. And really, it's just we're not lean. We're not a lean manufacturer, but we embody a lot of lean manufacturing practices. And these PIT teams are meant to improve processes, even if they shave pennies off of the process. And before we would go in and we would organize these teams around topics in the different facilities. And now we literally have people coming to us when we're in the facility saying, hey, we're setting up this PIT team. We need executive sponsorship. And we're like, oh, wow, okay. And we're like, well, what do you need? What resources do you need? What kind of time do you need for this? So that way, we're just helping them now where they're identifying deficiencies and they're working through how to correct them without it having to be prompted from us, which we're really proud of. We also have a lot more now where in our weekly team meetings, we're doing scorecard reviews. Every manager might be reporting his own scorecard, but now we've got, people from different plants, different, plant managers commenting on each other's. And they're asking, well, what could you have done differently there? Or, hey, I did this over here. You should have done this. So the EOT has sparked a lot more collaboration. It's also transformed our governance. It's probably for a different meeting, but as part of our transition, we also had to transition out our legacy partnership so we could get control for the employees over the company. But with that change, we have employees in governance on the board. And we did a election process where we let the employees all nominate each other, and then we took the top three nominations from each division of our company, and then we let that be the official vote. So it was just between three people at each division to fill the spots on the board. But it's really fun now because we've got people that are on the board and they're really digging under the hood of the company and they're going back and telling their peers what's going on in the company. And then I've got people coming to me and saying, hey, can we put this question or this topic on your board agenda? I'm like, yeah, it's your board agenda. I'm just a reporter. Um, so it's really sparked a lot more conversation. And then I'm gonna venture to say, well, we just made the full transition last summer. Um, our turnover is trending. I mean, I mentioned earlier, year to date, we're only sitting at 11% turnover. This time last year, we were sitting at about a 40% turnover, and we ended last year with about a 46% turnover. Um, so I'm taking the stab at saying immediately our turnover is going to be quite a bit less. It's going to be measurably less than it was last year because more of our employees are engaged in staying and seeing what's going to happen in the long term and into the future here. Um, I was at
That's
fish.
huge.
Yeah, I was at the fish fry. We did a kickoff fish fry for our employees at one of the plants, and I had an employee. I mean, he was super excited. He works two jobs, and he's like, I can't wait till the end of this year to get my bonus, and then next year we're going to be probably getting profit sharing. He's like, I might be able to quit one of my jobs. Those are the things that are exciting for us.
Love that. Yeah. It's also really impressive to me to hear that happening so quickly on the turnover just within a year. Um, Quite impressive. Okay, so I'm going to transition us now. We've got several folks on this call who are either in the process of transitioning to an EOT, they might be exploring it for the first time. So I'd love to just spend some time hearing from you, Ben. What advice do you have for folks who are either in process or just starting out and exploring this model?
Um, My first piece of advice is don't get too overwhelmed. The advantage of two advantages of this model. One is you have a lot of flexibility in how you structure it. All right. So, and that in and of itself could cause a lot of people some anxiety, but I'm saying don't let it be an anxious moment, because that flexibility is going to be a huge asset in making sure that you make the transition that's right for your company. And then the other thing I would say is uh, don't think that it has to just happen tomorrow. Some of you might be on a timeline. We ended up taking 3 years to do ours. We had some starts and stops with it. Zoe and her team were probably ready to slap me at different times, right? But ultimately, everything ended up making the transition when it was the right time to make the transition, when everybody seemed to actually be ready. Um, I am just as a method of reflecting on how we did it, and by talking with other business owners that have transitioned also. Um, I think go ahead and start acting as if early. Put some of your employees on a committee to explore different topics around your trust or your trust purpose or how you're going to capitalize your ownership transition. I mean, I think it's okay to have employees in some of those conversations. Um, it's very natural for us to have some kind of I don't even know what the right word is, like a leadership bias where we might say, oh, well, I don't think my employees are ready for this conversation. You'd be surprised, actually, what your employees are ready for. They're getting hit by a lot of crazy stuff from all over the external environment. But a lot of our employees really feel like their sense of normalcy and what they get to control every day is at work. So you'd be surprised just getting them involved early in the conversation, what that can do for your transition and for the buy-in of the transition. Plus, it helps just so you don't snowball everything at one time, because then you've got that whole big fear of this is so much change at one time. And then also, I mean, I spoke about, speed and speed of transition, but again, just let the speed kind of lend itself to the motivating factors of the transition. Um, some of the business owners may be looking to retire tomorrow, and it might need to be an urgent thing, right? But some of them might be looking 5 years down the line at how do I retire, or maybe I was going to get ready to sell. I mean, if you were going to look at 5 years, you have the chance to slowly, or in a kind of a exponential, well, not an exponential way, but an intermediate way to make steps towards your transition. I mean, I think it's fine for, this is just me talking, but I think it's fine for, owners to transition some of the equities over to their trust in stages too, as employees get more bought into the whole process and take over more of the company. So those are just a few things. Ultimately, for us, I think where we were really successful is we just approached ours with integrity and transparency. When we had employees ask questions, we didn't pull any punches. When we had our partners or our vendors ask questions, we let them know what was going on. And ultimately, I think by the time we were ready to change, everybody was ready for it. We caught very few people off guard, and ultimately, I think that was a good thing. So.
Great. I'm going to say to the audience, feel free to drop any last questions you have in because we have a couple minutes left. Ben, one question I have for you in talking, in hearing your story is, I think the cultural mechanisms you guys have developed are incredibly impressive. I'd love to hear you reflect on, for a company that doesn't have any of that in place yet, how do you get started and how do you kind of ladder up to that? Because as you talked about in this conversation, it took several kind of processes of saying, well, let's add this, let's add this. Talk to us a bit about that. Where do you get started?
Uh, I think if it were me coming back and getting started again, I think starting it around some kind of weekly metrics meeting would be a good way to go, and make sure that it's not a report down, but it's a report up, to where department heads, supervisors, managers, whatever, they're bringing information about their department and the value they're adding to the company to the group for discussion. We do it through our scorecarding. I know not every company uses scorecards, but most companies have some version of KPIs that, they're tracking across different functional areas. I think that's a good place to start because, again, it gets people talking about the business that might not have been used to talking about the wider business or company than just their department. So I think getting people engaged around a conversation around the business is a great place to start, and then expand on it from there. And frankly, I'm at this point just because it was a great read, and I've met Jack and Steve a couple of times. I think reading Great Game of Business is a good way to go too, because it kind of just opens your eyes to different ways to game your business and to engage your employees. So that might be something to take a look at as well. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's get people engaged in the conversation, and the sooner you start getting them engaged in the conversation, the less stress it might be on you because they can also tell you what kind of company they want to take over in the future, right?
Well put. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. It's every time I hear your story and every time I hear about the things you guys have put together, I'm endlessly impressed and candidly want to steal half of these for common trust. So you may see our version of a meat cleaver on the wall sometime soon. But thank you for joining us, sharing your wisdom, sharing your hard-earned lessons. For folks on the call, if you're curious about employee ownership, and if you want to explore if this is a fit for you as a business, we'd love to talk. If you're earlier in the process, we can help folks with planning and understanding if this is right for you. If you are all in, like Ben, we can help you get started on actually setting up your employee ownership trust and operating in these ways.